Well, Taylor Doolittle, it is so great to have you in studio today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me here. It's great to be here.
You know, you and I met because you helped me with a little project, which we'll get into in a little bit, but maybe you can tell me a little bit about you personally first and then,
Sure.
And what you do.
Sure. So I am a residential real estate agent in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. I help my own clients buy, sell, and invest in real estate. And then I run a team of residential real estate agents. We have about 20 agents on our team
Wow,
at this
that's
point.
more than last time we chatted.
Yeah, we're growing quickly.
You must be doing something right.
Systems. We created systems that help. Yeah.
Well, and we'll get into that too,
Yeah.
because I'm really impressed by your systems. The way I met you was that I was planning to sell a duplex that we'd owned for many, many years. My youngest is just graduated from college, and those were kind of the college plans.
Yep.
And one day it occurred to me, I don't need to own this anymore. And I tried to sell it twice before over the past few years. And, it's just really not a good idea to sell your own property. And I just said, this time we're going to really sell, and I'm going to hire a residential specialist and not sell my own property, which I think is really good advice. So I went onto MLS because we have access to that as well, and found some agents that had sold duplexes with multiple offers, and in the neighborhood in Linden Hills. And your name was one of them, and I reached out to 3 or 4, and truth be told, I thought Taylor was a girl, but I did reach out to guys and girls. I'm equal opportunity employer, but you responded. You came, met with me without any hassle. You brought me the number that I had exactly in my head, and it was just, and I couldn't be more impressed. The whole process was amazing. So thank you for that. So tell me a little bit about what kinds of properties you're selling and what you do, and how is it that you have these processes that are so seamless, I would say.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, as a residential real estate agent, that means I primarily focus on properties that are 1 to 4 units. Anything 5 units or more would be classified as commercial real estate. But a majority of my clients are either first-time home buyers, move-up buyers where, hey, maybe we're going to grow a family in this next house, or real estate investors, because investing in real estate is something that's really important to me. I'm a big believer in, I use my real estate sales as a way to create income to then purchase assets to build long-term wealth. And so that's an important thing for me. So being able to help people along their investment journey, whether it's to start a portfolio, build a portfolio, or liquidate and cash out of a portfolio, is something that I'm super passionate about. So I really, really love doing that.
Well, obviously, I'm a huge believer in that kind of thing. My only regret might be that we had kind of gotten faster and bigger, and you're doing that. But tell me a little bit about why it makes sense, and why do you say that it's the long term for the investment piece of it? I think that there is a little bit, if you don't own investment real estate, I think you think, okay, I'm going to buy this property and I'm going to be rich overnight.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think in our day and age right now, with the rise of social media and the access to information and podcasts, there's this get rich quick easy mentality, or what's the next trick for us to, hey, do this one thing and in 6 months I don't really have to work very hard, but then I get to really win big. And the more people that I get to meet through my job, and the more business owners like yourself that I meet, you cannot get past the fact that you just got to put in the work. And so I'm a big believer in having the marathon rather than the sprint mentality when it comes to investing in real estate, because owning real estate over time can be a really, really powerful piece in building long-term wealth. Now, over the past couple years in our real estate market, with values appreciating as quickly as they have, it's been really cool for a lot of people, but that's not something that you can rely on long-term. So I'm a big believer of, hey, the best time to buy real estate was yesterday. And so just holding on to a property and having that mindset of, hey, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, as long as this is a good investment now and the cash flow on the property gives me the opportunity to own it longer, then that having that long-term mindset, I think you're going to make much more wise decisions than those get-rich-quick mentality.
Well, and, the get rich quick has been around forever, right? Because, before your time, it was always no money down and, you can do this. So, I think that's really good advice because that's definitely been our experience. We've been able to leverage our residential rental properties and refinance them for things that we needed and use them as equity for doing other things. And it's been really, I think, just a solid way to just kind of grow wealth, and you're doing it in such a smart, educated way as well. But it's not something that you can expect to do really quickly. Right. And I think counting on appreciation is also challenging. I think that cash flow piece is really important.
Right.
Looking at those numbers. If you're in a duplex and you live in half and you rent out half, that just helps you buy a property, right? But you're going to want to make sure that the cash flow allows you to own that property.
Right. And speaking specifically about residential real estate, what's really nice is that long-term fixed debt that you can place on properties. So as long as the numbers work now and your rent can cover all of your expenses and you're locking in that all-in monthly cost for you with that long-term debt, yes, it's really important to make sure that it cash flows now. And that's where there's just so many benefits in investing in real estate. And as long as we make sure that it cash flows now, then that appreciation over time, although not guaranteed, is really a great opportunity to build wealth over time.
Yeah. A gentleman that used to teach real estate principals always said, basically you have people helping you buy a building is your tenants, which is kind of interesting. So talk about this residential real estate market. It has been crazy, right? People, you're helping first-time home buyers. It was almost impossible to buy a house. You were making offers and there's multiple offers, and all of a sudden the interest rates go up, and now what? Nobody's buying houses anymore?
Yeah, so it's really, really interesting. If for the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years, every spring market, at least specifically in the Twin Cities, every spring market, I've had the same conversation with buyers thinking, it can't get crazier than this. Is now the right time to buy? And in retrospect, the last 2 years, although you had to do some really crazy things to get a house, I would say that it was almost a buyer's market, because people that purchased a home in 2020 and 2021, seeing how their values really increased, they are not complaining about purchasing real estate.
Wow.
And then especially now with interest rates going up, you know what? We have seen a slowdown in demand, but people still need houses. And in our market, rent isn't a better financial option because rent is so high. So although demand has slowed down a bit, homes are still selling. So, hey, a home might not have 30 offers on it, but if it still has 5 offers on it, that's still great for the seller. And very honestly, for buyers, I tell people, you are marrying the purchase price, but you're dating the interest rate. What I mean by that is, hey, with less demand, you're able to lock in a really good purchase price compared to 6 months ago where maybe you had to pay 40 grand more for this house. And interest rates haven't spiked for more than 30 months historically without coming back down and settling down a little bit. So if you can lock in a purchase with a good purchase price now, then there's a very good likelihood you're going to be able to refinance into a little bit lower of an interest rate a little bit down the road.
Interesting.
Double win. 2 ways to win.
Right? And you get to marry and date at the same time.
Exactly. You can never refinance a purchase price.
Very crazy. Yeah. Well, let's talk about some other disruptors in the market, in the residential marketplace. Airbnb and short-term rentals. Is that putting pressure on markets? I know, we took our proceeds and exchanged into a home in Florida that we rent out, and you're familiar with some of that market and markets down south and even locally. Are a lot of homes being rented out?
So I have some colleagues that are very heavily into the short-term rental game, and a lot of people talk about how, hey, kind of that gold rush over the past couple years where short-term rentals were a really great way to generate a lot of income. That is ending a little bit in the sense that a lot of cities are seeing, hey, a lot of our inventory is being purchased by investors, which means the houses that are left over for primary owners are just skyrocketing in value. So a lot of cities are cracking down on how many licenses you can have and what that looks like. So that has definitely changed the game. I'd say something that probably is a little bit more impactful to, depending what market you are in, are institutional buyers. The big institutions that are bringing hedge fund money and purchasing homes. I think they said in the past year, 1 every 5 homes was a sale to an institutional buyer.
Wow.
So that's a little bit more of an impactor right now, whereas the short-term rental markets, at least in the Twin Cities, doesn't play a huge role, in my opinion, to values.
So who are some of these institutions that are purchasing? And then, I'd heard that Zillow was buying a bunch of houses and they were going to try to get into a different game, maybe even take the residential realtor out of the play. I know so little about that, but you hear all these rumblings about how residential real estate is going to change, and it always seems like it floats back to just the same processes, albeit, a little bit more.
Yeah, so there's a handful of different players in the game. A lot of the hedge funds are purchasing these rentals as buy and hold investments to generate return for their investors, whereas the Zillows and the Open Doors of the world are not holding on to these properties long term. They are essentially flipping these houses to sell. So, for instance, right now, I'm in the middle of 2 transactions where the seller is Redfin, which is a large real estate brokerage, where they purchased the home, they fixed it up, and they're now selling it on the retail market. With that being said, one of the ones I have under contract, they purchased for $420,000 this summer, and we have it under contract for $400,000. So a lot of these disruptors that we talk about in the residential real estate market are almost operating their businesses like a tech company, saying, well, it doesn't make money, but maybe if we do enough volume, then it will become profitable at some point. So it's almost what we'd call a loss leader, where they say, hey, we don't make money, but we've got market share. Zillow did that for a couple years, massive failure, and they shut down their operations. Their biggest competitor was a company called Open Door, and just this week, Zillow and Open Door announced a partnership where you can go onto Zillow and press a button to get an offer from Open Door.
Wow.
So it doesn't take a huge portion of our real estate market. At the end of the day, most people are not going to feel comfortable buying or selling a house on an Amazon type marketplace.
Yeah.
They want that trusted advisor, and that's where someone like you in the commercial space or someone like me in the residential space, I think there's always going to be a space for us.
So I'm just curious to know if this is even a thing, but I've seen a couple of Zillow estimates that have come down recently. Now, could they influence the market by changing what they think the value is in order to be able to purchase properties at a lower value? I mean, is that even a thing, or am I just being a conspiracy theorist?
I think that could make an impact if there were more transactions going on by those companies.
Okay.
There's just not a lot.
Got it.
I'd say values are likely going to be more influenced by those Blackstone hedge fund groups that, hey, down in Jacksonville, Florida, or in some of these marketplaces where almost entire neighborhoods are being purchased using investor debt that they're borrowing at 2.5% compared to a normal person going and getting a 5% loan right now. That's going to affect values, likely in certain markets way more than a Zillow or something like that.
Right. Well, it's so interesting because technology continues to change the way everyone does everything, right? And it's no different in commercial real estate or residential real estate. And you have a tech background, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was your what did you do? How did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so good question. It was an accident. It was not on purpose. So I worked for Apple for 5 years, just in the retail space, which working in the retail space just taught me so much about communicating with people. People coming in stressed about any number of things and being able to help people through complex problems and being able to communicate them in a concise, more simple manner. So bringing that skill set into real estate has been really helpful from an educational standpoint. But my wife and I were living abroad in Australia. We moved back to the States.
That is so cool. How did you end up in Australia?
It was an accident.
You've got a lot of accidents.
A lot of accidents. Well, and I'm a big believer of, hey, if an opportunity pops up that you didn't foresee, if you have the courage to say yes to that opportunity, you're really, really cool things can happen.
Yeah.
So we left the States for what we thought was going to be a 2-month trip in between jobs and ended up getting rehired at Apple in Sydney, Australia. And we were gone for 2 years. So 2 months turned into 2 years.
So cool.
Moved back, thought I would jump into corporate tech because there's so many great companies in the Twin Cities. And my brother-in-law had been selling real estate for a couple years at that point. And he said, hey, I want to start a team. You have experience leading teams. You should try real estate with me. And I said, I've never thought of that ever. But, talked to all my trusted people, prayed about it a ton, and I felt like God was opening up some doors. And so I said, I'll sprint through these doors unless one gets slammed shut. And 5 years later, I can't imagine not doing real estate ever. I'm ruined.
It does. It definitely gets in your blood, for sure. But you're super good at it, and I think some of the technology that you experience that you have brought into creating systems and processes, which makes your transactions so smooth. And I mean, I've learned a few tips and tricks from you along the way, and apply them to my own business. So I appreciate you for that.
Well, yeah, and something about residential real estate, and this is a big difference, at least in my perception, between residential and commercial. Is residential, we're working in a pretty strict box. So oftentimes we're doing the same steps over and over. So as I entered into this new career with that tech mindset, any task that I saw myself doing over and over again, I just turned it into a system. So whether it's creating a template of, hey, seller, we're about to enter into this part of the transaction. You need to do this, this, and this. Well, I found myself writing that email 4 times, and I realized, maybe I just do it once really well, and then I'll copy and paste, whether it's through software or different websites. And I think that's a really cool lesson to be learned in whatever job that you're doing. Can help you be much more efficient and more professional in a sense. So instead of me in saying, I've got 2 minutes to write this email. Well, if I'm thoughtful and write it once and spend 15 minutes on it and make it really nice, well, then now every time I send it again, it's a really nice email.
Yeah, well, I think it's super impressive, and it works. And I do think that is a really big difference between residential and commercial. We can talk a little bit about running a team because we both run commercial real estate brokerage offices, but on the commercial side, there's so many different variables, and deals tend to take a lot longer. And a lot of times when I've got a newer broker in the office, they'll say, hey, when you're in this situation, what do you usually do? And I'll say, well, we've never really quite been in exactly that situation before because there's so many different variables, whereas I think residential definitely has a lot more systems and processes, and it's just kind of more repetitive, which is why I think it's really important to have a residential real estate person work on residential real estate and commercial real estate. Professionals work on commercial real estate. I
read a book this year that I got a lot out of called Who Not How. And it's all about hiring the right person for the job. So you don't necessarily need to know how to do everything yourself, but if you know someone who knows how to do that thing, leverage their knowledge. So same with the residential and commercial. Hey, if I have a commercial question, yes, I technically have the credential to do it, but I don't play in that space. And if I miss something and we're playing with that big of numbers, it could be financially devastating to me. So that's why, having someone like you in my corner, Lisa, this happened, what do I do? Can be really, really helpful.
I do have who, not how. You probably told me about it. I have it like literally taped to my wall.
Yeah.
And it's great because I find that even, bringing on my team to transactions that we bring in the door is really helpful because, doing what I'm good at, which is connecting people and going out and getting the business and kind of working through the challenges and having a good team of people around me that can do the things that I'm not as good at has really changed my business. And we're having by far our best year ever. And I think I give a lot of credit to the fact that I just got out of the way, Yeah,
and that's in residential real estate specifically. There's a lot of people in the industry that are very good with people. And so that helped them get a real estate sales job up and running, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that they're good at business owners. So that's something that we try to do on our team, and I try to teach agents on our team, is how do you be really good at your job, but then how do you operate your business in a wise way through delegating, hiring an assistant, or creating systems around certain tasks that you're doing. Because in residential real estate, once you get busy initially, it can almost feel like a chicken with your head cut off, where you're working 100-hour weeks, which to a certain extent is necessary in any business to put in that time and work to get your business up and running. But then how do you implement wise systems and delegation and bringing certain people on to turn it into more of a smoothly operating business?
Right. And you have grown. How do you find agents? I mean, it's really hard to find talented people who want to take on this business, because it's a really hard business to get into, whether it's residential or commercial. It takes you a while to build your business, and in an economy where there's some really great paying jobs out there. And how do you convince people to join your team and to do this crazy thing called real estate?
Yeah, that's a good question. At least for what we have done up to this point is we're not outbound looking for people. Everyone that's joined the team up to this point has been inbound expressing interest in joining. And more so kind of in the past couple years, because we were able to get up and running and do a good amount of business, and people see that and they can be drawn to that, right? Saying, oh my gosh, they're doing it. I want to be a part of that, which is exciting. And we have some really awesome people on our team, and most of the agents that have joined have been from the personal sphere of other people that are on the team. So it might be, hey, Brett is doing really, really well. He's been on the team for 2 years, and he's had really close buddies of his watch him over the past 2 years and say, oh my goodness, that sounds like something I want to do. And so it's bringing on basically friends of agents that are already on the team. And I think as you're looking to hire and bring people on, I think the most important thing is to make sure that the people coming on align with your values. And at the end of the day, I don't care if you sell, a lot of homes. If you aren't doing it for reasons that are aligned with what our team is aligned with and our mission statement and values, then we're probably not the right fit.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
And two, it's kind of finding that purpose of why are you creating a team? If we wanted to create a team with the purpose of we want everyone to sell this many homes and we want to be this, really my purpose as a team leader is to be able to teach people on our team how to create generational wealth and be impact players in their communities and in their families. So they don't need to sell. They don't need to be a top 20 agent in the state to do that. And so I think, just to recap that, as you're bringing on people, making sure that they align with the values that you have displayed as a company.
Yeah, I mean, I concur. And, we just kind of took another look at just kind of what those core values are as a company on a company retreat we did this summer. And, I think it's gone unchanged with a few little tweaks, but it really, to surround yourself with people who are really good humans and have the best intentions for their clients is way more important than some of the other metrics that, at least in our organization, and I know that's true for your organization as well. So what do you think is going to happen with residential real estate? I mean, there's a gajillion apartment being built. There's only so many homes. There's the new 2040 plan, and so there's a push to increase density in cities. What do you see in the little crystal ball that's in front of you?
If I had the answer,
Right?
it's crazy because I have people that I inherently trust their opinion, and some people say the real estate market's going to crash, and others say it's only going to keep going up and up and up. At the end of the day, people still need homes. And like I said earlier, rent is not a good affordable option, at least in the Twin Cities. And I know in most of the U.S. right now, rent is high. And we just are so behind in necessary inventory to meet the demand of people that need houses.
Right.
So I can't see values going down significantly at all. I mean, I think if interest rates continue to rise, we might see just an affordability. People are just have to spend less. But as far as what I'm seeing right now, homes are still selling at list price or above list price.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And where do you see this industry as a residential real estate professional? How do you see that changing potentially in the future? Do you think it's going to change much? Because boy, there's always been, when MLS came out and the transparency of people could find their own properties and search online, maybe we don't need that residential real estate agent anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be those new technologies or those new companies that pop up that are going to take a percentage of the market. But I still can't see, just personally, if I'm going and purchasing something that's $500,000, I don't want to feel like I'm reading blog posts to teach me how to do that. I want someone that knows how to do this. Same with, hey, E-Trade has allowed people to invest in stocks themselves.
Right.
But if you're looking to put money in there for investments, you're probably going to talk to someone, a financial advisor.
Right.
So I think there's still a space for residential real estate agents for the foreseeable future, just because most people want that trusted advisor to walk alongside them and guide them through one of the most impactful financial decisions of their life.
Right. Well, I know it was super helpful to have your expertise, with when you're entrenched in similar transactions across the board, to be able to say, hey, what should we do in this multiple offer situation? And, check on the nuances. There's so many nuances in that residential world. And it was really helpful to have a person standing alongside him. I sure could have stuck a sign in the ground and sold that property myself, but having your help, and I was super grateful that I found you, and maybe not by chance, and it was really, really amazing to work with someone with the professionalism that you have. So I thank you so much for that.
Thank you. It means a lot coming from another real estate person.
Well,
thank you.
It's great working with you. Great knowing you. And, just looking forward to watch your young family and your career grow, and just look forward to our next chat.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Always excited to talk about real estate, and I could probably talk for hours, and you'd probably want to kick me out of here. But always interesting to talk about kind of the future, and it'll be interesting to see over the next 6 to 12 months as interest rates, probably continue to rise, what happens in our real estate market.
And I'm sure you won't be opposed to us putting your contact information in the show notes. And if people want to get a hold of an amazing residential real estate broker, that they can give you a call.
No, I mean, obviously would be happy to help people interview for the job to help them with that. But also, too, for people that are looking to invest in real estate,
sure.
Always happy just to have a conversation and say, hey, where are you at? Where would you suggest me going? And it's just something I'm really passionate about. And I love to talk about things that are important to me. So even if it's just, hey, what do you think about this? Always happy to connect and chat.
That's amazing. What an amazing offer. And I hope some people take you up on that, because I think that's really amazing. As I said, twice now, maybe 3 times. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.
Super fun.
Thank you very much.